A single mother accepts a job bathing a millionaire, and the unexpected happens. Part 2. More useless attempts. Eliza's voice shattered the moment. She stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, her face twisted in a look of contempt. Julian's eyes darkened, his posture stiffening. If you think this is so pointless, why are you still here? Eliza's lips curled into a mocking smile. I'm here to make sure you don't destroy yourself with these foolish ideas. Someone has to manage what you can't anymore. Julian's jaw tightened, his voice cold. Is that what you call managing? Manipulating and sabotaging? Is that how you justify it? Eliza's smile faded, her eyes hardening. I do what's necessary. Julian's fingers tightened around the armrests of his wheelchair, his shoulders rigid. Consider yourself warned, Eliza. I won't tolerate this behavior anymore. For a moment, Eliza's face betrayed shock, but she quickly recovered, her eyes narrowing. She stared at him, her expression icy, before turning on her heel and leaving the room without another word. As her footsteps faded, Amelie exhaled, her heart still racing. She won't give up easily. Julian's eyes remained fixed on the door, his voice steady. Neither will I. Amelie smiled, a surge of hope filling her chest. Good. They shared a brief, knowing look, a silent promise of resilience. The battle was far from over, but they were ready to fight. Later in the afternoon, Amelie was in the kitchen when her phone rang. Roman's cheerful voice instantly melted away the tension of the day. Mommy, I saw a rainbow today. Have you ever seen one? Amelie's face softened, her heart warming. Not today, sweetheart, but I hope to see one soon. Roman's voice grew softer. Are you okay, Mommy? You sound tired. Amelie felt tears prick her eyes, but she kept her tone light. I'm fine, my love, just a little busy, but don't worry. I'm taking care of everything. I miss you, Mommy. Amelie's chest tightened, her throat aching. I miss you too, baby, but we'll be together soon, I promise. After hanging up, Amelie leaned against the counter, wiping a tear from her cheek. Roman was her strength, her reason for fighting, but each day apart grew harder. She took a deep breath, her resolve solidifying. She couldn't afford to give up, not now. That evening, Julian asked Amelie to meet him in the library. The room was dimly lit, shadows dancing along the walls. He sat by the window, his face illuminated by the soft glow of the evening sky. Chloe, he began, his voice unusually gentle. Have you ever wondered why I'm still here? Why I keep trying? Amelie looked at him, her expression soft. Because you believe there's still something worth reaching for. Julian's lips twitched into a faint smile. Maybe you're right, but until now, I thought I was doing it alone. Now, I'm starting to think, maybe I need help. Amelie's heart ached at his vulnerability. There's no shame in that, sir. We all need help sometimes. Julian's eyes softened, his shoulders relaxing. Have you ever thought that maybe it's not just about me? That maybe you're here for a bigger reason? Amelie felt a chill run down her spine, his words echoing the question he had asked before. What do you mean? Julian looked away, his expression thoughtful. Maybe you're not just here to work. Maybe you're meant to help me find something I lost a long time ago. Amelie's breath caught, her heart fluttering. She wanted to ask him more, to understand what he meant, but Julian's face grew guarded again, his walls going back up. Forget it, he murmured. I was just thinking out loud. But Amelie knew there was more to his words. For a moment, she saw the man behind the pain, the man who was slowly learning to believe again. You're not alone, Julian, she whispered. You never were. Julian looked at her, his eyes searching hers. For the first time, she saw gratitude, genuine and raw. Thank you for believing in me. Amelie's heart swelled, her voice soft. Always. The next morning, Amelie was preparing breakfast when Aurora entered the kitchen, holding an envelope. Her eyes were warm, a knowing smile on her lips. Julian asked me to give this to you. Amelie took the envelope, her heart skipping a beat as she opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. Thank you for believing in me. Let's keep going. Amelie's eyes misted, a smile spreading across her face. It was just a note, but it meant everything. Julian was changing, growing stronger, not just in body, but in spirit, and she was part of that change. She folded the note carefully, slipping it into her pocket. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready, because she wasn't just helping Julian stand, she was helping him live again. After lunch, Julian asked Amelie to join him in the garden. The sun was warm, the sky clear, and the air was filled with the gentle rustle of leaves. Julian looked more relaxed than she had seen him in a long time, his shoulders less tense, his expression thoughtful. As they strolled along the garden path, Julian suddenly spoke, his voice distant. "Do you think people can change?" Amelie glanced at him, seeing the weight behind his question. He wasn't just curious, he was searching for something, maybe even hope. She considered her words carefully before answering. "I think they can, but it takes willingness and courage." Julian's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening slightly. And what if they don't have that? What if they'd rather destroy everything than try to change? Amelie's heart skipped a beat. She knew then that he was talking about Eliza. In that case, change only happens when people lose control, when they're forced to see things differently. Julian was silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on a bed of blooming flowers, his fingers curled around the armrests of his wheelchair, his knuckles white. Maybe that's what needs to happen. Amelie watched him, her chest tightening. Sometimes losing control is the only way to find it again. Julian's head turned, his eyes meeting hers. For a fleeting moment, she saw pain, raw and unguarded. Then he looked away, his walls going back up. Maybe. The conversation lingered in the air, heavy and unresolved. But it was a start. Julian was beginning to confront his demons, and Amelie was determined to help him face them. Later, as Amelie was cleaning the library, her phone buzzed. Roman's cheerful voice instantly lifted her spirits. "Mommy! Today I played doctor with Anna!" His laughter was bright, pure, filling her heart with warmth. "I'm great at taking care of people." Amelie laughed, her eyes softening. "You're great at everything, my love." Roman paused, his voice growing softer. "When can I visit you at the mansion? I want to see the flowers you told me about." Amelie's chest tightened, her heart aching. "Soon, sweetheart, I promise. We'll plan it." "I miss you, Mommy." Amelie felt a lump rise in her throat, tears pricking her eyes. "I miss you too, baby, but we'll be together soon, I promise." After hanging up, she stared at her phone, her fingers trembling. Roman was her greatest motivation, her reason for every sacrifice, but the distance between them was growing harder to bear. She took a deep breath, wiping her eyes. She couldn't give up, not when Roman was counting on her. Later that afternoon, Amelie found Aurora in the kitchen, her face pale, her hands clutching an envelope. "I received this today," Aurora whispered, her voice tinged with fear. "I think you need to see it." Amelie's heart skipped a beat as she took the envelope. Her fingers shook as she opened it, revealing another threat note. "You're digging your own grave. Leave before it's too late." A chill ran down Amelie's spine, her body stiffening as she read the words. But her fear quickly transformed into anger, fierce, unyielding. She wouldn't be intimidated. Not by Eliza, not by anyone. "I'm not going anywhere," Amelie said firmly, her voice unwavering as she folded the note and slipped it into her pocket. Aurora's eyes widened, her expression anxious. "Be careful, Amelie. Eliza is dangerous." "She won't stop until she gets what she wants." Amelie's jaw tightened, her resolve hardening. "Well, neither will I." She met Aurora's gaze, her eyes blazing with determination. "I have too much to fight for." Aurora's face softened, respect shining in her eyes. "Then fight smart, Amelie. Don't let her see you coming." Amelie nodded, a fierce smile tugging at her lips. "I won't." She was ready to face Eliza, and this time she wasn't backing down. That evening, Julian asked Amelie to meet him in his office. He sat behind his desk, a pile of documents spread out before him, but his expression was no longer one of anger. It was one of focus, calculation. "You asked me earlier how you could help," Julian began, his voice steady. "I think I found a way." Amelie approached, her heart racing. "I'm ready, sir." Julian held out one of the documents, his eyes piercing. "I want you to read this. Tell me what you see." Amelie took the paper, her eyes scanning the lines of text. It was a proposal for asset transfers, meticulously crafted to benefit Eliza. The language was manipulative, the terms deceptively complex, but the intention was clear. Control. Amelie's face hardened as she looked up at Julian. This is a blatant attempt to take over your properties." Julian's lips curled into a bitter smile. "Exactly. And that's why I need people like you around, someone who sees things for what they really are." Amelie's chest tightened with pride, but she knew the battle was far from over. "What do you want to do?" Julian's eyes darkened, his posture straightening. "Fight back? I've been passive for too long, letting her manipulate everything around me. That ends now." Amelie's heart raced, her fists clenching. "I'm with you, sir, whatever you need." Julian's expression softened, his eyes grateful. "Thank you, Amelie. I'm going to need you now more than ever." "I won't let you down," Amelie vowed, her voice firm. "We'll take her down together." For the first time, Julian smiled, a genuine, determined smile. Together. They stood united, ready to face Eliza head-on. The war had begun, and this time, Julian wasn't fighting alone. The next morning, Eliza's demeanor was colder, sharper. She stormed into the living room, her face tight with anger, her eyes blazing with fury. "Julian, we need to talk." "Now!" Her voice was clipped, the thin veneer of politeness cracking. Julian looked up from his book, his expression calm, controlled. "Do we?" Eliza's lips tightened, her hands clenching at her sides. "Yes? You've been making decisions without consulting me." Julian's eyes glinted with defiance. "I don't need to consult you, Eliza. Not anymore." Eliza's face hardened, her gaze shifting to Amelie, who stood quietly by Julian's side. "Is this her doing? Do you really think she's on your side?" Julian's voice was cold as ice. "She's more loyal than you'll ever be." Eliza's face turned pale, her eyes flashing with rage. "You'll regret this, Julian. You're making a mistake." Julian's expression didn't waver. "The only mistake I made was trusting you." Eliza's mask shattered, revealing the bitterness beneath. Without another word, she turned and stormed out, her heels echoing down the hallway. Amelie looked at Julian, her heart racing. "Are you all right, sir?" Julian's shoulders relaxed, his face softening. "For the first time, yes." Amelie smiled, hope blooming in her chest. Eliza was powerful, but Julian was stronger, and together they were unstoppable. Julian's eyes were calm, but his expression was unyielding. He faced Eliza with a quiet confidence, his posture rigid, his hands steady on the armrests of his wheelchair. "If this is about the documents, I've already made my decision." Eliza's face twisted with anger, her arms crossing tightly over her chest. "You're making a mistake, Julian, and it's all because of her." Her finger pointed accusingly at Amelie, her voice dripping with contempt. Amelie's body tensed, but she stood her ground, her face calm and unflinching. Before she could respond, Julian's voice cut through the tension, firm and protective. "Don't you dare blame her for your own failures, Eliza. She has nothing to do with this." Eliza's eyes widened in shock, her mouth opening in disbelief. It was clear she hadn't expected Julian to defend Amelie so fiercely, but the surprise quickly faded, replaced by cold fury. "You'll regret this, Julian, I guarantee it," she hissed, her voice low and threatening. Without waiting for a reply, she turned and stormed out of the room, the door slamming behind her with a resounding echo. The room fell into silence, the air heavy with tension. Amelie let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Are you all right, sir?" she asked, her voice soft. Julian's shoulders relaxed, his posture softening as he looked at her. "I am now, thank you, for standing by me." Amelie's heart swelled with gratitude. Always, for the first time, Julian smiled, a genuine, warm smile. Then, "Let's see this through, together." Amelie nodded, her eyes shining with determination. Together. The next morning, Amelie was organizing the kitchen utensils, her mind still replaying the confrontation from the day before. She was lost in thought when Aurora burst into the room, her face pale, her voice urgent. "Julian wants to see you in his office. It's important," Aurora whispered, her eyes wide with worry. Amelie's heart skipped a beat, anxiety tightening in her chest. "Did he say why?" Aurora shook her head. "No, but he looked serious, more than usual." Amelie didn't wait for more. She quickly made her way to Julian's office, her pulse racing. She found him behind his desk, his wheelchair angled to face a stack of papers spread out before him. His expression was hard, his eyes dark with intensity. "Come in, Amelie," Julian said, his voice firm but calm. He gestured to the chair beside his desk. "Sit down, we need to talk." Amelie sat, her posture straight, her attention fully on him. "What's going on, sir?" Julian ran a hand over the papers, organizing them into a neat stack before looking up at her. "I've discovered something that could change everything." Amelie's heart raced. "What is it?" Julian handed her one of the documents, his eyes unwavering. These are financial records. Eliza has been diverting funds from one of the properties she manages under my name. Not only that, but she manipulated the value of the assets, lying about the profits. She's been stealing from me, Amelie, for years. Amelie's eyes widened as she scanned the documents, her stomach twisting with anger. This is fraud. She's been betraying you all this time. Julian's expression was grim, his jaw clenched. I confronted her last night. She denied everything as I expected, but now I have enough evidence to remove her from any position of influence. She's losing everything. Amelie looked up, concern flashing in her eyes. Does she know that? Julian's eyes darkened. She knows, and that's why I'm worried. Eliza's dangerous when cornered. Amelie felt a chill run down her spine. People like her are the most dangerous when they have nothing left to lose. Julian nodded, his face solemn. That's exactly why I need you here, Amelie. I need someone I can trust. Amelie's heart skipped, her chest tightening. You have my loyalty, sir, no matter what happens. Julian's gaze softened, his shoulders relaxing. Thank you, Amelie. I don't say this often, but I couldn't do this without you. Amelie's breath caught, her eyes misting. We're in this together, Julian. I won't let you down. For the first time, Julian's smile reached his eyes. I know. Later, Amelie assisted Julian with his physical therapy routine. The air in the room was thick with determination, Julian's eyes burning with purpose. I want to see how far I can go today, he announced, positioning his wheelchair beside the parallel bars. His face was set, his jaw tight with resolve. Amelie moved beside him, her hands ready to assist. Take it slow, sir, one step at a time. Julian gripped the bars, his fingers tightening as his muscles strained. His arms trembled with the effort, his face contorting with pain, but he refused to give up. He pulled himself upright, his body rising higher than before. Amelie's heart raced, her voice steady. You're doing it. Keep going. Just a little more. Julian's arms shook, his breathing heavy, but he held his position, his torso straight and proud. It was brief, only a few seconds, but it was a victory. When he finally lowered himself back into his wheelchair, his face was flushed, his body exhausted, but his eyes shone with triumph. I didn't think I could do that. Amelie's face broke into a wide smile. You're surpassing yourself, sir. This is incredible. Julian looked at her, his expression raw and vulnerable. You're helping me more than you realize, Amelie. I wouldn't say this easily, but I think I need you here. Amelie's breath caught, her heart skipping. She opened her mouth to respond, but words failed her. Instead, she smiled, her eyes warm. I'm glad to be here, sir. Julian's lips twitched, his face softening. Good. They stayed there in comfortable silence, the room filled with quiet hope. It was just a small step, but it meant everything. Amelie helped him get comfortable again, her heart lighter than it had been in days. For the first time, she saw a future, not just for Julian, but for herself. Because this wasn't just about helping him stand, it was about helping him rise. In the afternoon, Eliza stormed into the dining room, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Her posture was rigid, her eyes blazing with anger as she watched Amelie set the table with calm precision. The hostility in Eliza's glare was palpable, her voice dripping with contempt. Do you really think you have a future here? Eliza's tone was cold, her arms crossing tightly over her chest. Amelie stopped what she was doing, her fingers lingering on the silverware. She turned slowly, meeting Eliza's gaze with quiet confidence. I'm here to work. I'm not looking for conflict. Eliza let out a harsh, mocking laugh. Conflict? You've already created one. Julian is against me because of you. Amelie's expression remained calm, her voice even. Julian is against you because you tried to betray him. Eliza's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a cruel smile. Do you think you can stand up to me? People like you don't belong in this world. I will destroy you. Amelie's heart raced, but she stood her ground, refusing to show fear. I'm not afraid of you, Eliza, and I'm not going anywhere. Eliza's face hardened, her eyes flashing with fury. She took a step closer, her voice low and menacing. You'll regret this, Chloe. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Before Amelie could respond, a firm voice cut through the tension. That's enough, Eliza. This has gone too far. Both women turned to see Julian in the doorway, his expression cold, his eyes sharp. He moved his wheelchair forward, his posture rigid with authority. Eliza's face softened, her demeanor shifting instantly. "Julian, don't believe her lies. I only want what's best for you." Julian's eyes flicked to Amelie, then back to Eliza. His expression was unyielding, his voice firm. "The best for me? No, Eliza, you mean the best for yourself. I've seen enough. You no longer have a place in this house." Eliza's face went pale, her body stiffening. "You can't be serious. After everything I've done for you?" Julian's voice was cold, resolute. "Everything you've done for me? You've been manipulating and sabotaging me for years. I trusted you, and you used that trust for your own gain. It ends now." For a moment, Eliza stood frozen, her face twisting with shock. But then she laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You think you can get rid of me that easily? I know things that could destroy you." Julian didn't flinch, his expression calm. "Do whatever you want, Eliza, but know this. Anything you try against me will only reveal who you truly are." Eliza's eyes widened, her face contorting with rage. Without another word, she turned and stormed out of the room, her heels echoing down the hallway. The door slammed behind her, the sound reverberating through the room. Silence fell, heavy and tense. Emily let out a shaky breath, her heart still racing. "Thank you for defending me, sir." Julian's shoulders relaxed, his face softening. "I didn't do it for you, Chloe. I did it for myself. It's time I started standing up for myself, too." Emily's chest tightened with pride. "You did the right thing." Julian's lips curved into a faint smile. Maybe I did." For the first time, Emily saw strength in his eyes. Not just physical strength, but the strength to fight for himself. And that made all the difference. Later that night, Amelie spoke to Roman on the phone, his voice a welcome relief amidst the day's chaos. "Mommy, today I drew a big house with flowers in the garden. Does it look like the mansion?" Roman's voice was bright, his excitement infectious. Amelie laughed, her heart warming. "Yes, it looks a lot like it. You're getting better at drawing every day." Roman's voice grew softer, more thoughtful. "And the man in the chair, is he walking yet?" Amelie's breath caught, her chest tightening. "He's trying, love, and he's making great progress." "Good. I knew he could do it," Roman said confidently. "Just like you always tell me, never give up." Amelie felt tears prick her eyes, her heart aching with pride. "That's right, sweetheart, never give up." After hanging up, Amelie sat in silence, her fingers lingering on the phone. Roman's innocent hope was a reminder of why she was here, why she was fighting so hard, for him, for Julian, for herself. The next day, Eliza was more aggressive than ever. She avoided Julian, but made sure to confront Amelie whenever she could. Her eyes were cold, her words sharp, dripping with venom. While Amelie was organizing the kitchen cabinets, Eliza burst in, her posture rigid, her eyes blazing with hatred. "You should leave before things get worse," Eliza hissed, her voice low and threatening. Amelie's heart raced, but she kept her face calm, her hands continuing their work. "I'm not leaving. I'm here to do my job." Eliza's lips curled into a cruel smile. "You think you're safe because Julian protects you? You're wrong. He can't protect you from me." Molly's hands tightened around the plates she was holding, but she forced her voice to remain steady. "I'm not afraid of you, Eliza. Your threats mean nothing to me." Eliza's face darkened, her eyes narrowing. "You're playing a dangerous game, Chloe. You'll regret ever coming here." Amelie stood her ground, her posture firm. "I didn't come here to fight with you, Eliza. I came here to help Mr. Foster, and nothing you say will change that." Eliza stepped closer, her face inches from Amelie's. "You're out of your depth. People like you don't last long in this world." Before Amelie could respond, Aurora appeared at the doorway, her arms crossed, her eyes sharp. "Is everything all right here?" Eliza's face twisted with irritation, her body stiffening. She turned, her expression smoothing into false politeness. "Of course, I was just having a conversation with Chloe." Aurora's eyes narrowed, her voice firm. "Then I suggest you finish it elsewhere. She has work to do." Eliza's mouth tightened, her eyes flashing with anger. Without another word, she spun on her heel and stalked out of the kitchen, her exit as dramatic as her entrance. Aurora waited until Eliza was out of earshot before turning to Emily. "Are you all right?" Amelie let out a breath, her shoulders sagging with relief. "Yes, thank you, Aurora." Aurora's face softened, her expression protective. "Don't let her intimidate you. She's losing control and she knows it." Amelie straightened, her eyes blazing with determination. "She won't scare me away. Not now. Not ever." Aurora smiled, pride shining in her eyes. "Good, because we're not letting her win." Amelie's heart swelled, her resolve hardening. Eliza was powerful, but she wasn't unbeatable. And Amelie was just getting started. At the end of the day, Julian asked Amelie to meet him in his office again. He was sitting behind his desk, his posture more relaxed, his face softer than she had ever seen before. There was a weight lifted from his shoulders, as if a difficult decision had finally been made. He looked up as she entered, his expression warm. "Chloe, I want to thank you for everything you've done for me. I know it hasn't been easy, dealing with Eliza and with me." Amelie's heart fluttered at the sincerity in his voice. "It's my job, sir, and it's a privilege to see you making progress." Julian shook his head, his eyes earnest. "It's more than that. You've shown me that there's something more, that maybe I still have something worth fighting for." Amelie's breath caught, her chest tightening. For the first time, she didn't see the bitter, broken man who had closed himself off from the world. She saw a man who was beginning to rebuild himself, piece by piece. Her voice was soft, steady. "You do have something worth fighting for, Julian, and you're not alone in this fight." Julian's lips curled into a faint smile, his eyes shining with gratitude. "No, I'm not." For the first time, Amelie saw hope in his eyes, real, unguarded hope. "Thank you, Chloe, for helping me see that." Amelie's eyes misted, but she kept her voice steady. Always. In that moment, she knew she had made the right choice by coming here. The next morning, the mansion buzzed with a different energy. There was tension in the air, an underlying current of anticipation, as if everyone was waiting for something to happen. But there was also a sense of change, a shift that was beginning to reshape the household. As Amelie prepared breakfast, she tried to organize her thoughts about everything that had happened. Eliza remained a looming threat, her presence casting a dark shadow over the mansion, but Julian was more determined than ever to stand up to her. Just as she finished arranging the tray, Aurora walked into the kitchen, her face tight with concern. "Have you heard what Eliza is planning?" Aurora asked, her voice low. Amelie's heart skipped a beat. "No, what is she up to now?" Aurora sighed, her arms crossing defensively. "She's been talking to some of Julian's lawyers, trying to sway them to her side. I think she's planning to challenge his ability to make decisions about his own business." A chill ran down Amelie's spine. Is that even possible? Not without substantial evidence. But Eliza is cunning. If she manipulates the right people, she could make things very difficult for him. Amelie's hands clenched, her worry growing. "Julian needs to know about this." Aurora nodded. "He trusts you, Chloe. You should be the one to tell him." Amelie's chest tightened. "You're right. I'll tell him today." She knew that the battle was far from over and that they needed to be ready for whatever Eliza had planned next. Later, Amelie found Julian in the garden, his wheelchair positioned under the shade of a large tree, his face turned up toward the morning sun. He looked peaceful, his expression softened by the golden light, but Amelie knew that this moment of calm wouldn't last. "Mr. Foster, may I speak with you?" she asked, her voice careful but firm. Julian turned his chair, his eyes meeting hers. "Of course, Chloe, what is it?" Amelie hesitated, her heart pounding. But then she remembered Aurora's words. "He trusts you." She took a deep breath and recounted everything Aurora had told her about Elisa's plans. Julian's face grew hard, his jaw tightening, his eyes darkening with every word. "She's really gone that far?" he muttered, his voice cold. "Trying to declare me incompetent? Trying to take my life from me?" Amelie's hands trembled, but her voice remained steady. "We need to act before she gets anywhere. If she convinces the lawyers, she could take control of everything." Julian's expression was grim, his posture rigid. "I've been expecting this. I knew she would get desperate when she realized she was losing control." Amelie frowned, her eyes searching his face. "You knew?" Julian looked away, his hands clenching the armrests. "I've been preparing for this, for a long time. but it requires patience. She needs to make her final mistake before I can expose her completely. Amelie's heart raced. What if she tries something before then? Julian turned back to her, his eyes sharp, his voice resolute. Then we'll be ready. Amelie felt a chill run down her spine, but she nodded, her determination solidifying. Whatever you need, I'm here. Julian's face softened, his eyes warm. I know. That's why I trust you, Chloe. For the first time, Amelie felt the full weight of his trust, and the responsibility that came with it. She wouldn't let him down. Not now, not ever. That afternoon, Julian asked Amelie to join him in the physical therapy room. There was a fire in his eyes, a fierce determination that made her heart race. He positioned his wheelchair beside the parallel bars, his posture rigid, his expression set. Today, I'm going to try standing up again. Amelie's chest tightened with anticipation. Are you sure, sir? Julian's lips curled into a faint smile. I've never been more sure of anything. Amelie nodded, moving to his side, her hands ready to assist. Take it slow, one step at a time. Julian gripped the bars, his muscles tensing, his face hardening with effort. His arms shook, his breathing growing labored, but he didn't let go. Slowly, painfully, his body began to rise. Amelie's heart raced, her voice steady. You're doing it. Just a little more. Hold on. Julian's torso straightened, his head lifting, his back aligning with the bars. His legs were still unresponsive, but his upper body stood tall, supported by his own strength. His face was flushed, his eyes wide with disbelief. I'm standing. Amelie's eyes filled with tears, her heart soaring. You're standing, Julian. You did it. His arms shook, his body trembling, but he held the position for several seconds before slowly lowering himself back into his chair. His breathing was ragged, his body exhausted, but his face was radiant. I didn't think I could do that. Amelie laughed through her tears, her voice breaking. You just proved yourself wrong. Julian looked at her, his eyes shining with gratitude. Thank you for believing in me. Amelie's chest tightened, her heart full. I always will. In that moment, the walls Julian had built around himself began to crumble, and for the first time, Amelie saw the man he was meant to be. A fighter, a survivor, a man who was learning to live again. Amelie moved closer, her hands hovering just behind Julian's back, ready to support him. Her heart raced as she watched him grip the parallel bars, his fingers tightening, his muscles trembling with effort. Take it slow, sir. One step at a time, she encouraged, her voice steady but warm. Julian's face was set, his jaw clenched with determination, his arms flexed, his shoulders straining as he pulled himself up. His body shook, his breathing ragged, but he kept going, inch by inch, his torso lifting off the seat. Amelie's eyes widened, her heart pounding. You're doing amazing, sir. Keep going. Julian's legs remained immobile, but his upper body stood tall, supported by his own strength. For a few precious seconds he remained upright, his face flushed with effort, his eyes wide with disbelief. Then, slowly, he lowered himself back into his wheelchair, his body sagging with exhaustion. His breathing was heavy, his forehead glistening with sweat, but his lips curled into a faint, triumphant smile. I felt something in my legs, he said breathlessly, his eyes wide with wonder. Amelie's face broke into a bright smile, her eyes shimmering. That's huge progress, Julian. Every small step counts. Julian looked at her, his gaze softening. There was gratitude in his eyes, raw and unguarded. You've been part of this, Amelie. I couldn't have done it without you. Amelie's chest tightened, warmth flooding her heart. I'm just glad to be here, to see you getting stronger. Julian's smile grew, his posture relaxing. You're helping me believe again, in myself, and that's something no one can take away from me. For a moment, they stood in comfortable silence, the air between them warm and light. It was just a small victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. The moment shattered as Eliza appeared in the doorway, her face twisted with disdain. She crossed her arms, her eyes cold as they flicked between Julian and Amelie. Another little performance, I see, she sneered, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Julian turned to face her, his shoulders straightening, his expression hardening. If you're here to criticize Eliza, I suggest you leave. Eliza's lips curled into a bitter smile. I'm just stating the truth, Julian. You're deluding yourself. This farce is nothing more than false hope, she pointed at Amelie, her eyes flashing. And she's only feeding into it. Amelie's chest tightened, but she kept her face calm, her posture straight. She wouldn't give Eliza the satisfaction of seeing her rattled. Before she could respond, Julian's voice cut through the air, sharp and cold. What Amelie is doing is something you never did, helping me believe in myself. His eyes narrowed, his voice firm. And that's something no one can take away from me, not even you. Eliza's face paled, her eyes widening. She opened her mouth to retort but seemed to think better of it. Her face twisted with fury, her fists clenching at her sides. Without another word, she spun on her heel and stormed out, the door slamming behind her. The echo of the door reverberated through the room, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Julian's shoulders slumped, his body sagging with exhaustion. She'll never change. Amelie moved beside him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. Maybe not, but you already have. Julian looked up, his eyes softening. Thanks to you. Amelie's heart swelled, her voice gentle. No, thanks to your own strength. You chose to fight back. You chose to stand. Julian's lips twitched into a faint smile. Yeah, I did, didn't I? For the first time, Amelie saw pride in his eyes, and it was beautiful. Later that night, Amelie was in the kitchen, organizing the cabinets, when her phone rang. Roman's cheerful voice filled her heart with warmth, his innocence a welcome relief after the day's tension. Mommy, today I drew a picture of you and the man in the chair. He's walking in the drawing. Amelie laughed, her chest tightening with love. Really? I can't wait to see it. Are you being good? Yes, but I miss you. Roman's voice softened, a hint of vulnerability seeping through. Amelie's heart clenched, her throat tightening. I miss you too, my love, but we'll be together soon. I promise. Okay. I love you, Mommy. Amelie's eyes filled with tears, her voice breaking. I love you too, sweetheart. So much. After hanging up, Amelie stood in the kitchen, her fingers clutching the phone. Roman was her strength, her reason for fighting. Everything she was doing, every sacrifice she was making, was for him. She took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. She wouldn't let Eliza win. She wouldn't let anyone stand in her way. For Roman, for Julian, for herself. The next morning, Julian asked Amelie to meet him in the library. His expression was serious, his eyes focused as he flipped through a set of documents, his posture rigid. Without looking up, he spoke, his voice steady. I have something important to tell you. Amelie's heart skipped a beat, her chest tightening with anticipation. I'm listening, sir. Julian closed the folder, his fingers lingering on the cover as he looked up, his eyes locking onto hers. I'm going to confront Eliza once and for all, but you should know, this could change everything. Amelie's brows furrowed. What do you mean? Julian took a deep breath, his shoulders tensing. If things spiral out of control, you might become a target too. She won't take this lying down, and she won't hesitate to come after anyone who stands with me. Amelie's heart raced, but she lifted her chin, her eyes fierce. I'm here for a reason, sir. And I'm not giving up now. Julian's face softened, his eyes gleaming with gratitude. I knew you'd say that. Amelie stepped closer, her voice firm. Whatever happens, I'm with you. We'll face her together. Julian's shoulders relaxed, his posture straightening. Then let's end this, once and for all. They stood side by side, their gazes locked, their determination solidifying. The final battle was coming, and this time they were ready. The morning began with palpable tension in the mansion. Malia could feel it in the air, an electricity that seemed to hum through the walls. Julian was preparing to confront Eliza once and for all, and the anticipation was suffocating. But what worried her most wasn't Julian's plan. It was what Eliza might be planning in return. Their interactions had grown more intense over the past few days, charged with an animosity that seemed ready to explode. Amelie had a gut feeling that something big was about to happen, and she needed to be ready. As she prepared breakfast, her hands moving automatically through the familiar motions, Aurora rushed into the kitchen, her face pale, her eyes wide with worry. In her hand was an envelope, the stark white paper crumpled from her grip. Molly's heart sank. "Another note?" she asked, already dreading the answer. Aurora nodded, her voice low. "It was left at the front door. No signature, nothing, just this." Amelie took the envelope, her fingers trembling as she opened it. The note was short, the words scrawled hastily in bold black ink. "If you think you're going to win, you're very mistaken." A chill ran down Amelie's spine. She could almost feel the desperation behind the words, the anger seeping from the ink. She looked up at Aurora, whose face was tight with concern. "She's desperate," Aurora whispered, her arms crossing defensively. "And desperation can be dangerous." Amelie folded the note, slipping it into her pocket. Her eyes hardened, her posture straightening. "I know, but I'm ready." Aurora's face softened, admiration flashing in her eyes. "Be careful, Amelie. She's more dangerous than we realized." Amelie's jaw tightened, her resolve solidifying. "So am I." She wouldn't let Eliza scare her away. Not now, not ever. Later that morning, Julian summoned Amelie to his office. He was seated in his wheelchair, his posture rigid, his face grim. Documents were spread across his desk, his laptop open with multiple tabs flashing on the screen. His eyes were sharp, his jaw clenched with determination. As Amelie entered, he gestured to the chair in front of his desk. "Sit down, Chloe. We have a lot to discuss." Amelie took her seat, her heart racing. "What's going on, sir?" Julian's eyes flicked to the laptop, his fingers tapping the edge of his desk. "I received news from my lawyers this morning. Eliza tried to transfer a significant amount of money to an offshore account. She was planning to drain one of my business accounts and disappear." Molly's eyes widened, anger boiling in her chest. "Did she succeed?" Julian's lips curled into a bitter smile. "No. The lawyers caught it in time and blocked the transaction, but it proves that she's willing to do anything, even commit fraud to get what she wants." Amelie's hands tightened in her lap, her voice cold. "She's more dangerous than we thought." Julian's expression hardened, his eyes flashing. "That's why today, I'm confronting her. I'm going to lay everything out, every piece of evidence, and give her a choice. Leave on her own or face legal action." Amelie's breath caught, her chest tightening. "Do you think she'll leave willingly?" Julian's face was grim. "No, but I'm giving her one last chance before I destroy her in court. I want to avoid a scandal if I can, for the sake of the business, but I won't hesitate to protect what's mine." Amelie nodded, her voice firm. "I'll be by your side, sir, whatever happens." Julian's face softened, his eyes gleaming with gratitude. "I knew I could count on you, Chloe. Thank you." Amelie's heart swelled, her resolve hardening. "We'll end this together." Julian's lips twitched into a faint smile. "Yes, together." The confrontation took place in the living room. The tension so thick it seemed to hang in the air like a storm cloud. Amelie stayed in the kitchen, her heart racing, her ears straining to catch every word. On her spot by the door, she could hear Julian's voice, cold, controlled, but laced with anger. "Why are you doing this, Eliza?" Eliza's voice was calm, almost playful. "Doing what? I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't play games with me," Julian snapped, his voice sharp. "Embezzling funds, manipulating my business? Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" There was a pause, a tense silence. Then Eliza laughed, but the sound was brittle, hollow. "Accusing me of stealing? That's pathetic, Julian. You have no proof." Amelie's fists tightened, her body tensing. Julian's voice was calm, unyielding. "I have all the proof I need." Papers rustled, his voice growing colder. "Bank records, transfer attempts, emails. It's all here, Eliza, and if you don't leave now, I'll take it to court." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Eliza's voice cut through the air, sharp and angry. "You're accusing me of betrayal after everything I've done for you? I was here when no one else was. I stood by you." Julian's laugh was bitter. "You were here because you thought you could control me. You saw me as weak, as a pawn in your little game. But that ends now." Amelie's chest tightened, her heart racing. Eliza's voice grew colder, her words laced with venom. You'll regret this, Julian. You think you're stronger now? You're just as pathetic as you always were. And she's only making you weaker." Amelie felt the blood drain from her face, her body freezing. Julian's voice dropped, dangerously calm. "Leave her out of this, Eliza. This is between you and me." Eliza laughed, the sound cruel and mocking. "You think she cares about you? She's using you, just like everyone else." Julian's voice was firm, unyielding. "The only person who's been using me is you." There was a pause, the tension crackling through the air. Then Eliza's voice grew low, her words a whisper. "You'll regret this, Julian. I promise you that." Emily heard the sharp click of heels on the marble floor, followed by the slam of the door. The house fell into silence, the air heavy with the aftermath of confrontation. Emily's heart pounded, her body trembling. It was over. Julian had confronted Eliza, and she was finally gone. But, as Amelie leaned against the kitchen counter, a chill ran down her spine. Eliza's threat echoed in her mind, her cold voice lingering like a shadow. "You'll regret this, I promise." Amelie knew it wasn't over, the storm was just beginning. From a distance, Amelie listened, her heart pounding as the heated voices echoed through the mansion. The confrontation was intense, the tension so thick it felt suffocating. She couldn't make out every word, but she could hear the sharp, angry tones, the bitterness that laced every sentence. Then, suddenly, the door burst open, the sound ricocheting off the walls. Eliza stormed out, her face flushed with anger, her eyes blazing with fury. Her hands were clenched at her sides, her body trembling with barely contained rage. As she marched down the hallway, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor, she shot Amelie a withering glare, her eyes filled with venom. Her lips curled into a sneer, but she didn't say a word. She didn't have to. The hatred in her eyes said everything. Amelie's heart raced, but she held her ground, her face calm, her posture straight. She wouldn't give Eliza the satisfaction of seeing her shaken. Without another glance, Eliza disappeared down the hallway, her exit as dramatic as her entrance. A few moments later, Julian appeared, his posture rigid, his face pale. There was a heaviness in his eyes, his shoulders sagging with exhaustion. "She's leaving," he said, his voice softer than Amelie had ever heard it. "It's over." Amelie's eyes widened. "She agreed to it?" Julian's lips curled into a bitter smile. "Not exactly, but she knows she's lost. The lawyers will handle the rest." Amelie felt a wave of relief wash over her, her shoulders relaxing, but she knew better than to believe it was truly over. Eliza wasn't the type to go down quietly. Still, she smiled, her voice warm. "You did it, sir. You stood up to her." Julian's face softened, his eyes gleaming with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Amelie. You helped me believe again. In myself." Emily's chest tightened, her heart fluttering. "You were always strong, Julian. You just needed someone to remind you." Julian's lips twitched into a faint smile. "And you did. Better than anyone else ever could." For the first time, Amelie saw hope in his eyes. Real, unbreakable hope. That afternoon, Julian asked Amelie to help him with his physical therapy. There was a new fire in his eyes, a fierce determination that made Amelie's heart race. Every movement, no matter how small, felt charged with meaning. As she adjusted the equipment, she couldn't help but smile. "You seem more determined today, sir." Julian's fingers tightened around the parallel bars, his shoulders straightening. "That's because I know I'm back in control, and I want to keep it that way." Amelie's heart swelled with pride. "Then let's see what you can do today." Julian nodded, his face set with resolve. He gripped the bars, his muscles tightening, his body trembling with the effort. His arms flexed, his shoulders straining as he began to lift himself up. Emily's breath caught, her eyes widening. "You're doing it. Keep going." Julian's face flushed with effort, his breathing heavy, but he kept rising, his torso lifting higher than ever before. His body shook, his muscles quivering, but he held the position, his back straight, his head high. For several precious seconds he stood, supported by his own strength. His eyes widened, his face radiant with disbelief. I'm standing." Amelie's chest tightened, tears pricking her eyes. "You're standing, Julian. You did it." Julian's arms trembled, his body shaking, but he held on, his face breaking into a triumphant smile. Finally, he lowered himself back into his wheelchair, his body sagging with exhaustion, his breathing ragged, but his eyes were shining, his face glowing with pride. I felt something in my legs. It was faint, but I felt it. Amelie's heart soared, her smile bright. That's huge progress, Julian. Every small step counts. Julian looked at her, his gaze softening. I never would have gotten here without you, Chloe. You helped me believe this was possible. Amelie's chest tightened, her heart fluttering. It's all your effort, Julian. I'm just here to help. Julian's face softened, his eyes gleaming. No, you did more than that. You helped me find hope again, and that's something no one else could have done. Amelie's eyes misted, her voice breaking. I'm just glad to be a part of your journey, to see you getting stronger every day. Julian's lips curved into a genuine smile. Thank you, Amelie, for everything. For a moment they stood in comfortable silence, their hearts full. It was just one small victory, but it meant everything. Later, as Amelie organized the library, her phone rang. Roman's cheerful voice was a welcome relief, his innocence washing away the tension of the day. Mommy, when can I visit you? I want to see the man in the chair. I drew him walking in my drawing. Amelie's heart swelled, her face breaking into a wide smile. Really? I can't wait to see it. You're so talented, sweetheart. Is he really walking? Roman asked, his voice full of hope. Emily's chest tightened, her voice soft. Not yet, but he's making great progress. He's very strong. I knew it, Roman said confidently. He's a hero, just like in the stories. Emily's eyes misted, her heart aching with love. Yes, he is. After hanging up, Amelie stood still, her fingers lingering on the phone. Roman's innocent faith was a reminder of why she was here, why she was fighting so hard, and it was a reminder that even heroes need help sometimes. At the end of the day, Julian asked Amelie to join him in the garden. The sky was painted in soft shades of orange and pink, the sun slowly sinking below the horizon. The air was cool, the breeze gentle, rustling through the trees. Julian's wheelchair was positioned under the sprawling branches of an old oak tree, his face turned toward the sky, his expression serene. Today was an important day, he said quietly, his voice thoughtful. In more ways than one. Amelie stood beside him, her heart full. It truly was, sir. You handled everything remarkably well. You were incredible. Julian turned to look at her, his eyes soft, his face open. I couldn't have done it without you, Chloe. I don't think I would have come this far without you by my side. Amelie's breath caught, her chest tightening. I'm just doing my job, sir. Julian shook his head, his gaze unwavering. It's more than that. You helped me believe in myself again. You helped me find strength I didn't know I had. Amelie's eyes shimmered, her voice breaking. You were always strong, Julian. You just needed someone to remind you. Julian's lips curved into a tender smile. And you did, better than anyone else ever could. They stood in comfortable silence, the sky ablaze with color, the air thick with unspoken words. Together, they had faced the darkness, and together, they had found the light. Amelie felt warmth rise in her chest, her heart fluttering, but before she could respond, Julian continued, his voice softer, his eyes vulnerable. There's something I need to say. He hesitated, his gaze dropping to his hands, his fingers fidgeting. I feel like I'm changing, and I think you're the reason for that. Amelie's breath caught, her eyes widening. She had noticed something different about Julian. He was softer, more open, more hopeful, but hearing him admit it left her momentarily speechless. Julian looked up, his eyes earnest, his face open. Thank you for not giving up on me. His lips curled into a shy smile, his vulnerability raw and beautiful. Amelie felt her throat tighten, her heart aching. She finally found her voice, her words gentle but firm. I would never give up on you, Julian, because I know there's so much more to you than even you realize. Julian's face softened, his eyes shimmering. You make me believe that maybe I can be more, that maybe I deserve more. Amelie's chest tightened, tears pricking her eyes. "You do, Julian. You deserve everything you're willing to fight for." Julian looked at her, his gaze lingering, his face tender. "Then I'll keep fighting, because you make me want to." For a moment, they stood in comfortable silence, the sun sinking behind the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink. It was a new beginning, a moment of transformation, and Amelie knew that nothing would ever be the same. The days that followed brought definitive changes to the mansion. Eliza left abruptly, her exit as dramatic as her presence had always been. There were no goodbyes, no explanations, just the echo of her anger lingering in the hallways. She left behind a trail of resentment and bitterness, but Julian seemed determined to overcome it. With Eliza gone, the mansion felt different, lighter, less suffocating. It was as if the air itself had been freed from her toxicity. The staff moved with a renewed energy, smiles more frequent, laughter more genuine. And Julian? Julian was a different man. He was more focused than ever, his determination unbreakable. He insisted on daily physical therapy sessions, pushing his limits, testing his strength. Every day he worked harder, longer, fighting against the weakness that had once held him captive. And Amelie was by his side through it all, encouraging him, supporting him, believing in him even when he doubted himself. One sunny afternoon, Julian achieved what once seemed impossible. He stood up from the parallel bars without Amelie's help. Amelie's heart stopped, her eyes wide with disbelief as she watched him lift himself, his body trembling, his arms shaking with effort. But he stood, his back straight, his head high, his eyes shining with triumph. It was only for a few seconds, but it was enough. You did it!" Amelie exclaimed, her voice breaking, tears streaming down her face. "Julian, you stood on your own!" Julian's face flushed with effort, his breathing ragged, but his smile was radiant. "We did it, Amelie. This is as much your victory as it is mine." Molly's chest tightened, her heart full. You're surpassing everyone's expectations, sir." Julian looked at her, his gaze intense, his expression holding something more than gratitude, including my own, because I had you to remind me it was still possible. Molly's breath caught, her heart fluttering. "You did this, Julian. You chose to stand." Julian's eyes gleamed with emotion. "And I chose to fight, because you made me believe it was worth it." Emily's lips trembled, her voice breaking. "It was always worth it, because you were always worth it." Julian's eyes softened, his face glowing. "Thank you for never giving up on me." Amelie smiled through her tears. Never. In that moment, she realized that this journey had changed them both. Forever. That night, as Amelie prepared for bed, her phone rang. Roman's cheerful voice filled her heart with warmth, his innocence a balm to her tired soul. "Mommy, I made another drawing today. It's you, me, and the man in the chair. We're at a park, and he's walking." Amelie's heart swelled, her eyes misting. "Really? I can't wait to see it, my love. It sounds beautiful." Roman's voice grew soft, hopeful. "Will he walk, Mommy?" Amelie's breath caught, her chest tightening. She closed her eyes, her voice soft but firm. "Yes, my love. He's getting closer every day." Roman laughed, his joy pure and bright. "I knew it! He's a hero, just like in my stories." Amelie's tears fell, her heart aching with love. "Yes, he is." After hanging up, Amelie stood in silence, her fingers lingering on the phone. She realized that this journey wasn't just about helping Julian stand, it was about helping him live again. And in doing so, she had learned to live again too. The next morning, Julian called Amelie to his office. He was seated in his wheelchair, his posture straight, his face open and warm. In front of him was an envelope, resting neatly on the desk. As Amelie entered, Julian looked up, his eyes gleaming. "Chloe, you've been more than an employee to me." Amelie's heart raced, her breath catching. I was just doing what I thought was right, sir." Julian's lips curled into a tender smile. "And that's more than most people would do." He took a deep breath, his voice steady but sincere. "You've changed my life, and I want to change yours too." He slid the envelope toward her, his eyes never leaving her face. "Open it." Amelie's hands trembled as she picked up the envelope. She carefully opened it, her eyes widening as she read the contents. It was a formal contract, offering her a permanent position as his personal assistant, with a salary she had never dreamed of. Amelie's voice broke, her eyes filling with tears. I don't know what to say." Julian's smile grew, his face softening. "Say you accept." Amelie looked at him, her heart full, her voice trembling. I accept. Thank you, Julian. I don't know how to thank you enough." Julian's eyes shimmered, his voice warm. "You've already done more for me than I can ever repay, Amelie. This is just the beginning." Molly's tears fell, her heart overflowing with gratitude and love. "Thank you for believing in me." Julian's gaze softened, his voice tender. "Always." They shared a smile, a moment of pure, unspoken understanding. Together they had faced the darkness, and together they had found the light. That evening, Amelie and Roman were finally reunited at the mansion. Julian had insisted that Roman visit, wanting to meet the boy who had been Amelie's strength and inspiration. Amelie had been nervous, but when she arrived with Roman, she was stunned to find that Julian had gone out of his way to prepare a special surprise. In the living room, beautifully wrapped in bright paper, was a professional drawing kit, complete with sketch pads, colored pencils, and every tool a young artist could dream of. Roman's eyes lit up, his face breaking into a wide, joyous smile. He ran over to Julian, his small arms wrapping around him in a tight hug. "Thank you, sir. I'm going to draw you walking." Julian's breath caught, his chest tightening. He looked down at the boy, his heart aching with a mix of hope and determination. He laughed, his voice thick with emotion. "And I'll work hard to make that happen soon. Deal?" Roman pulled back, his face glowing. "Deal!" Amelie's eyes shimmered with tears as she watched the exchange. For the first time, the mansion felt like home, a place of warmth, hope, and love. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Julian threw himself into his recovery with renewed purpose. Roman's innocent faith had given him a reason to fight even harder, and he was more determined than ever to prove the boy's drawing right. Every morning he met Amelie in the physical therapy room, his eyes bright, his posture straight. With Amelie by his side, he pushed his limits, gritting his teeth through the pain, fighting against the weakness that had once defined him. And every evening, Roman would wait eagerly with his sketchpad, ready to capture Julian's progress through his colorful drawings. The mansion was filled with laughter, hope, and the vibrant energy only a child could bring. Even Aurora seemed more cheerful, her demeanor softer, her smiles more frequent. Then one day, the impossible happened. It was a sunny afternoon, the light streaming through the windows, bathing the room in golden warmth. Julian was gripping the parallel bars, his face set with fierce determination, his muscles trembling as he fought to steady himself. Amelie stood beside him, her hands ready to support him, her eyes wide with hope. "You're doing great, Julian. Just a little more." Julian's jaw tightened, his face flushing with effort. His arms shook, his shoulders quivering, but he held his position, his body refusing to give in, and then, slowly, he moved his leg forward. Amelie's heart stopped, her eyes widening with disbelief. "Julian, you took a step." Julian's body shook, his legs trembling, but his face was radiant, his eyes shining with hope. I did it, I took a step." Amelie's chest tightened, tears streaming down her face. "You did it, you took a step." Julian looked at her, his face breaking into a wide, triumphant smile. This is just the beginning." Amelie laughed through her tears, her voice shaking. "Yes, just the beginning." In that moment, Julian knew that nothing was impossible. He could stand. He could walk. He could live again. Months later, the mansion was filled with laughter and celebration. Julian hosted a small gathering in the garden, the air warm, the sky painted in shades of gold and pink. It was a celebration of his recovery, of his new beginning, and of the people who had made it possible. Amelie stood by his side, her face glowing with pride. Roman was next to her, his sketchpad clutched in his hands, his eyes wide with excitement. Aurora was there, her face bright with joy, her laughter light and carefree. It was a perfect day, a day of hope, of love, of new beginnings. But as the sun began to set, painting the sky in vibrant hues, Julian did something unexpected. He turned to Amelie, his eyes warm, his face soft. His posture was straight, his shoulders strong, his body supported by a cane, a symbol of his journey, his victory. He took her hand, his fingers wrapping around hers, his grip firm and steady. "Chloe." Amelie's breath caught, her heart racing. "Yes, Julian?" Julian's eyes were tender, his voice breaking. "You brought light into my life when everything was dark. You gave me reasons to believe again, to hope again, to live again." Emily's eyes filled with tears, her chest tightening. "Julian?" Julian took a deep breath, his voice steady. "You changed my life, Chloe. And now I want to ask if you would stay by my side, not just as my assistant, but as my wife." Amelie's world stopped, her heart pounding, her breath catching. She stared at him, her lips trembling, her eyes wide with shock. For a moment she was speechless, her mind reeling. But then the tears came, her face breaking into a bright, joyful smile. Yes, Julian, I will." Julian's face lit up, his eyes shining. "You will?" Amelie laughed, the sound pure and beautiful. "Yes, I love you, Julian. I always have." Julian's face softened, his voice breaking. "And I love you, Amelie, more than I ever thought possible." Roman ran over, his arms wrapping around them both, his voice bright. "Now we're a real family." Julian laughed, his arms tightening around them, his heart full. "Yes, we're a family." Together they stood under the golden sky, wrapped in love, surrounded by hope. It was just the beginning. A few months later, Julian and Amelie were married. The ceremony was simple but filled with love, their vows spoken with tears and laughter. Roman was the center of attention, his bright smile infectious, his energy radiant. Julian stood tall, supported by his cane, his posture proud, his eyes shining. He delivered an emotional speech about resilience, hope, and the power of love. As he spoke, his gaze never left Amelie's face, his voice breaking with emotion. "You helped me believe, you helped me live, and now I promise to spend every day making you as happy as you've made me." Amelie's tears fell, her heart overflowing. "And I promise to stand by your side forever." The guests clapped, their faces bright with joy, their hearts full of love. The mansion, once a place of darkness and loneliness, was now filled with laughter and light. It was a place of new beginnings, of hope, of love. Amelie's tears fell, and May rushed downstairs, hoping that Uncle Earl would approve. And as Julian, Amelie, and Roman stood together, their arms wrapped around each other, they knew that this was just the start of a beautiful story. A story of courage, of healing, of family, a story of love that conquered all. And what about you? What did you think of Amelie and Roman's story? Did their journey of hope, love, and resilience touch your heart? Leave your opinion in the comments below. Your voice matters, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What's your score? Did Julian's fight to walk again inspire you? Did Amelie's unwavering faith move you? Did Roman's innocence and joy remind you of the magic of believing? Share your rating and let us know which moment impacted you the most. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Don't miss out on more heartwarming stories that celebrate the power of love, hope, and second chances. Click the bell icon to be notified of all our new videos, and don't forget to check out more emotional stories that will inspire you, move you, and remind you of the beauty of life. Click here on the end screen to continue the journey. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the greatest victories come from the smallest steps.